from affecting our people. Now, after the chair is done with the briefing, we'll get a moment to ask questions. Please remember to always state your name and the media house that you represent, and keep it within the scope of this briefing. I would now like to invite the chair to brief members of the press. Chair, please.
Members of the press, my colleagues, good morning. This is a statement from the committee, the emergency committee that was created by the president to deal with this issue of coronavirus. Let me say from the outset that when I spoke at the Senate the other day, and when I spoke during my confirmation for Cabinet Secretary for Health, I said the following. I said that as far as coronavirus is concerned, it is not a question of whether. It is not a question of if we are going to get a case in due course. It was a question of when. And members of the press and fellow Kenyans, I want to inform you that the Ministry of Health has confirmed the first coronavirus case in Kenya. The case was confirmed on the 12th, which was last night, as the first one to be reported in Kenya since the beginning of the outbreak in China. The case is a Kenya citizen who traveled back to Nairobi, returning from the United States of America via London, United Kingdom, on the 5th of March 2020. She was confirmed positive by the National Influenza Center Laboratory at the National Public Health Laboratories of the Ministry of Health. I would like to add here, however, the patient is stable. Her temperature has gone down to normal. She is behaving normally. She is eating, but she cannot be released until the tests continue, until she gets negative. But as far as her state is concerned, the lady is okay. And therefore, there is really no need for alarm in our nation. The government of Kenya, through the Ministry of Health, continues to strengthen measures to ensure no further transmission of the disease in Kenya. The National Emergency Response Committee on Coronavirus Preparedness and Response will continue to provide strategic leadership, working through whole government approach to respond to this case in the implementation of mitigation measures. I wish to assure all Kenyans that we have been beefing up our preparedness capacities since the first confirmation cases in China. The government will use all available resources to respond to this case. The government has traced all the contacts of the patient since her arrival in Kenya. Kenyans are reminded that most people who become infected may experience only mild illness and recover easily. But the disease can be more severe in others, especially the elderly persons and others with chronic illnesses. Considering that the disease has now been classified as a pandemic, I have, as Minister for Health, invoked the Public Health Act. I therefore urge all Kenyans to observe the following. Number one is to regularly and thoroughly wash your hands with soap and water or use alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Maintain a distance of at least 1 meter, about 5 feet, between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Persons with a cough or sneeze should stay at home or keep a social distance, but avoid mixing with others in a crowd. Maintain good respiratory hygiene by covering your mouth and nose while coughing and sneezing with a handkerchief, tissue, or flexed elbow. Stay at home if you feel unwell with symptoms like fever, cough, and difficulties in breathing. We have suspended all public gatherings, meetings, religious crusades, games, and all events that are of a huge public nature. No more church services can go on, provided that they provide sanitizing and hand washing as people go into the worshiping areas. We have suspended all inter-school events, in other words, school-to-school athletics, school-to-school events, but the schools at this moment remain open. Public transport providers are directed to provide hand sanitizers for their clients and regular cleaning of their vehicles. Let me add here that this is something we arrived at in consultation with the public transport people. There was a meeting between the CS for transport. He's going to talk into that about matatus and so on. We are very pleased that they themselves say they are willing to do everything, including putting in their own money to ensure that people traveling in public transport are safe. We have suspended all visits to prisons for the next 30 days. We have also said, and we have repeated this before, we are repeating this, Kenyans must not abuse social media platforms or indulge in spreading misinformation that can cause fear and panic. We have placed travel restrictions outside the country unless absolutely necessary, and in any event, no travel at all to the areas, to the disease epicenter countries. And further on, we are going to be disseminating information on this issue on daily basis. As I said, we have embarked on a contact tracing for all persons who have been in contact with the lady who is now in Kenyatta. But I also want to add, ladies and gentlemen, that at this juncture, what we have is a coronavirus positive test. No more than that. Therefore, Kenyans will live normally. Wherever you are going, go normally. Carry out your business normally. Go to the shopping center normally. And there is no cause for alarm. So I wish also to add that going forward, there will be some inconveniences that citizens are going to experience. We apologize in advance. But this is one time when we are calling for serious citizen responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a situation where people look just at the government. This is a situation where people take responsibility. The business and private sector are urged to take their bit in terms of working with Kenyans in all areas. Some business organizations may provide hand washing points, Businesses may also put thermal scanners in their offices so that as people walk in, it is, they can scan you and know whether your temperature is okay. We are also releasing rapid response units so that if anybody has a problem, there are mobile units that can come and assist people who are suspected of having this disease. But at the moment, let me keep on emphasizing, at the moment, there is absolutely no need for panic or worry, provided we keep on observing the measures that we have set, observing personal hygiene. I am urging county governments to carry out thorough cleaning exercises. And this is why I'm saying citizens in groups, in colleges, and the county governments can now begin to a serious education process, even at the lowest levels. The Ministry of Health has a team throughout, effective today, which is the 15th. Today is when we were launching all level 4 and level 5 hospitals. The areas where we are going to be, which have been put aside, the isolation wards that we are going to keep in every level 4 and level 5 hospital across the country. And the support for that activity is being given directly from the Ministry of Health. So in terms of funding, we have provided sufficient funding, both from the Kenya government and the World Bank. And this is not a situation where we are panicking. We have got sufficient capacity. We have got sufficient gear, protective gear for all our workers. We have got the necessary transportation mechanisms. We have got ambulances ready. So we are set. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, there will be hiccups. Nothing can ever be 100%. So there will be hiccups. And when that happens, we ask for understanding rather than a massive criticism on the small things that are going wrong. This is a time for us all to come together as a nation, both media and all other sectors of our country. This is not a time for us to assign blame. The government is doing everything it can. This is a time for us to join together and make Kenya safe and ensure that this pandemic does not damage our nation. Those in the business sector, there will be shortages of certain items because of the closure of China. We are urging you, please, this is not the time to start making abnormal profits by charging abnormal prices for medicines and for goods and services. It is immoral. It would be immoral for anybody to take advantage of a situation like this one. Let us all work together. Let us all be together. And together, moving like that, we are sure that we will overcome. This is not the only challenge that our country has faced. We have faced many challenges before. We have overcome them. And even this one, we will overcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Questions? Yes?
Thank you for that question. Before I respond to that question, let me comment on what Waziri Kagwe talked about with regard to public transport. As you are aware, public transport actually does carry the vast majority of our people. If you take the matatus, the buses, the trains, they carry more than 90%. And that's why we are giving public transport a special focus in terms of these interventions. That is why this week on Tuesday, the 10th of March, we summoned all the public transport operators, the Matatu associations, the 6 of them, then the SGR management, and also the commuter rail, because collectively, like I said, they ferry more than 90% of our people. And if we had a problem within our public transport, this problem will go into all sectors, whether industrial, hospitals, and so we had to give it a special focus. And what we agreed, like Waziri has said, is to make sure that we work as partners in these endeavors. We told the associations that if there was a serious case of the coronavirus in our country, there will be no business for them. And therefore, they should not just focus on government doing ABCD for them. They agreed with us. They will comply with what we agreed. On top of that, we agreed that the teams from the health ministry will start conducting training at various bus stops, starting from 10 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. All the bus drivers, matatu drivers, the conductors, and so forth. Now, coming to your question about the flights, we have actually listed about 13 countries which we consider to be high risk. And we are reviewing on a day-to-day basis. That's why 2 days ago, we actually banned the flights to and from Italy. As of now, we don't have KQ flying to Rome. There was a flight from here to Rome and then to Geneva. That was suspended. We also suspended all the charter flights from Italy to Malindi and the coastal region of our country. So as of now, we are looking at other countries. We shall be taking decisions based on the trend and profile of the disease and virus in those countries. So you'll be hearing from us in the near future about the decisions we are taking on an incremental basis. Because you have seen now, this disease now has affected 115 countries. So obviously, if you are to stop flights from 115 countries, you are locking down the entire country. So all we are doing is taking decisions on an incremental basis to make sure that we make decisions which will make sure that our people are safe. That is number one priority as we continue these discussions. This morning, I had a discussion with one of the key airlines, and we shall be discussing as to actions to be taken, possibly by this afternoon. And that will be reported to you in due course. Thank you.
Let me add this, for clarity, and also to add to my colleague what my colleague has said. I think it is important for us to recognize the global nature of transport and the global nature of this menace. The lady in question, for instance, traveled from Ohio, traveled to Chicago, traveled through London, and ended up in Nairobi. So you can see all the areas that she passed through. Now, let me also add this, that in each of those areas, all the measures that we have been talking about, temperatures, thermal scanners, they are there. But the nature of, and in Nairobi, she was definitely checked. In London, she was checked. In Chicago, she was checked. But there is the period, the 14-day period, because she came on the 5th, and all that time, she was completely and totally normal. So I think we need to be sensitive and understand the complexity of this situation.
Thank you. Any other? Yes?
As I said, the decision was to ban all public rallies. There is no exception. let me, let me say this. First and foremost, I actually want to thank this lady. I want to thank her so much because the minute she started feeling slightly unwell, and she said to us, having read what we have been publishing, she felt that she should go to a hospital. She took herself to the hospital. You know, she's a very responsible citizen. She has given us the names of each and every person she has been in contact with throughout that period. We are also informing through this committee and through our Foreign Affairs Ministry. We have informed the British High Commission. We are in the process of informing the American ambassador, because these are people who came from those countries. And this is an import. This is an import case. It is not a homegrown case, which then tells us that hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed, you know, it might be an isolated one and we can tackle it.
Swali langu ni kuuliza kama serikali itaingilia kudhibiti bei ya bidhaa, manake baadhi ya bidhaa muhimu ambazo Wakenya wametumia kujikinga na ugonjwa tayari zimeanza kupanda bei. Sisi kama serikali itaingilia kudhibiti bei ya hizo bidhaa.
We have explained, and I have just made an appeal to the business community, because I said this is immoral, really, for this in this situation, for people to increase their prices, not because of the cost of production, but to make abnormal profits. And we can only appeal. At the moment, we have not engaged into price controls. We have not started that process. Obviously, if it went haywire, then the government would discuss and see what measures to take. But at the moment, we are just appealing to the business community to exercise some reasonable behavior in terms of pricing of goods and services as well. Yes, Chimutai.
The last communication from the ministry was that any person that has traveled from an epicenter or a region that has reported a positive case, self-isolate. Definitely this woman was in contact with somebody, and with this first reported case and the World Health Organization declaring this pandemic, possibly what is changing even now from your position in terms of self-isolation?
Thank you. First and foremost, this is the time now we begin to understand what self-quarantine, you know, is all about. Because first and foremost, I can confirm here that we are lucky, because this is a lady who was living. She's a young lady. She was living on her own, you know, not with a family, but she has been in contact with people. And there was a question about whether we have traced them or not, and I can confirm that we have traced. Not even that. We have even traced the passengers who she was sitting next to. And trace here refers to a person sitting 2 rows behind you and 2 rows ahead of you. So those people, we know who they are, and we are also informing those in outside this country, because some of them are not in Kenya. But we have taken the responsibility of also informing those people. So in terms of self-quarantine, if you feel that you have got a cough and you have got the situation that we are talking about, this is where you withdraw. You don't want to affect your kids. You don't want to affect your family. This is where you withdraw and self-quarantine yourself. And all of you have been reading about even Hollywood stars who are self-quarantining themselves, prime ministers who are self-quarantining themselves. So this is a situation where, and I spoke about it, in reference to citizen responsibility. So if that is what you are feeling, you withdraw yourself from the room, you let somebody know. As I said, you can either find if you are not that sick, you can find your way to a hospital so that we can test you. And if you feel, if you think that there is further test necessary, we will isolate you. But the first thing for you to do, the first measure that you must make, if you feel that you are getting there, is to self-isolate. And there is nobody who can get a whole country and quarantine them. There's nobody who can take a whole village and quarantine it. So this is a measure that is being taken throughout the world. It's not a Kenya thing. I think the last one maybe.
The second last one.
My name is Elizabeth Mera, I'm the journalist with the Nation Media Group. My question is, what is the age of usage? And the second question would be with regards to the contact she made when she reported, when she took herself to hospital. Which hospital did she go to? And have you made any, have you photographed with the people she came into contact with? The other thing we'd like to know is about
Sorry? Oh. Well,
Allow me to ask the tourism here as a question.
Sure.
What impact has this outbreak had on tourism? Because we reported that you allocated 500 million to cushion the impact on tourism. Could you just tell us the level of impact?
Thank you very much, and colleagues and members of the press. This is a global issue, which is the coronavirus and the disaster we are getting. It's going to affect the entire economy. And the biggest economy that is highly intense, with 1.4 billion people traveling all over the world, that is the sector that will be affected. You have seen the lockdown of cities and countries, then there's no travel, airlines are shutting down, then Kenya will not be affected. And if you've seen the number of people who are arriving already in Jomo Kenyatta Airport, the numbers are very low. So already we are feeling the effect of it. It's going to affect us. Luckily, we are entering into a low season, so we can appreciate we're going to a low season. But what is our plan after the low season? Or what is the plan post-corona? That's why the government has allocated 500 million for PR and for marketing strategy post-corona, and we are working with the private sector and the Kenya Tourism Board to do events after this effect. In the next 1 month, there will not be any activity in terms of the campaign, but preparing after what we have seen post-corona. So this is the preparation we are doing as a government. But definitely, we are going to be hit badly. And our key destination, which is Europe, which is United States, that is where we are going to suffer most. China is already closed, Italy is already closed, but now if there'll be a lockdown in Paris, a lockdown in London, then we will be affected. Already you have seen the announcement, no flights going to Europe, from Europe to the USA. I hope there'll be that effect of that cancellation if we can be able to bring people here, but already those countries are also locking down, so there'll be no movement even to Africa. Thank you very much.
The last question.
Well, let me say this. There has been this misguided notion that if you have got a black skin, you cannot get coronavirus. I would like to disabuse that notion. The lady is an African like you and I.
The last one.
And by the way, she is 27 years old, just like you look like.
The last one. At the back. No, the back. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, the issue of the passenger, that was a heart attack. It was nothing, it had nothing to do with coronavirus.
Please, the last question, quickly.
My question is this. Everyone is asking of the people the lady interacted with. You may have been in contact with those people, but the question is, have the people taken a measure of being quarantined, or they have just been in contact with them and reached out to them without having taken any measures?
As I said, there is something that we call contact tracing. And that involves the Ministry of Health has a team that goes around and picks on each and every name. We have got all the names, even the people on the respective flights. We have got the names of everybody who traveled on it. We have got the names, and as I said, the fortunate thing here is that this lady is doing well. So she's talking to us and telling us, I was with so-and-so for a day, I was with so-and-so for 2 days. So all those people, we have got a response team that is at the moment preparing to start talking to each and every person, taking their temperatures, observing them for the next 14 days to see whether any of them, and obviously what we are going to do for those who are close to them is basically quarantine. You know, they should quarantine themselves. And by the way, some quarantine, when you're told to quarantine yourself, it is not exactly a voluntary suggestion. It is you quarantine yourself. Because if you don't, then we will take you to a proper quarantine area. Thank you all very much. I appreciate, please, 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 my brothers and sisters from the Fourth Estate, let's work together on this one. I beseech you. Asanteni.